For most sellers on eBay, we're tasked to offer a generous 30-day return policy. And you would think that eBay would have your back by doing that, but not in all cases. And I'm going to talk to you about my experience with that here on the other side. So without any further ado, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flippin' Ain't Easy, and this channel we talk about a lot of things that the average reseller probably doesn't know or may never experience or may come across but just have no idea how to handle it. Because let's face it, most sellers out there are busy sourcing, listing, shipping, and all the other tasks in between. And when you run into that one-of-a-kind situation, it may throw you for a loop. You may choose just to cave in. You may choose to ignore it. You may choose to reach out for help. And the reason we make a lot of these videos, and a lot of times I'll make a lot of off-the-wall things that most people never see, it's because these things really happen to me, and I feel like, you know what, there's a good chance that someone out there, just someone, could benefit from at least knowing this information. So I make it a point to really focus on making these videos when these subjects come up. And eBay has a great way of creating content, or at least helping me create content. Just when I have writer's block, here comes eBay with another situation. Now the situation at hand has to do with returns, but more specifically returns beyond the generous, and I say generous because it is generous, a generous 30-day return policy. And what we're talking about here in this video is how eBay allows buyers to request a return beyond your generous return policy. Whether it's 30 days or 60 days, eBay gives the buyer a button, I believe up to 90 days, and that's when most functionality of a listing is gone. And your buyer has an option with eBay to request a return beyond your return policy up to 90 days. And that's concerning to me, because when I received this particular return request, it looked like a normal return request. And of course, if you're looking at the return request on your phone, it's one where it gives you a bunch of options, and it doesn't even show you. This is another thing about returns on eBay. On the phone, you're trying to see what the hell are they even trying to return. It won't show it to you on the app when you're first looking at the first screen that pops up, and you're supposed to make an educated decision on what option, whether you accept the return, provide a label, provide a refund, partial refund, and you just don't even know what item you're dealing with. You have to backtrack. You've got to start looking at stuff. And so in this particular case, I waited, which was the wise thing to do. I think a lot of times we just don't want to be bothered with returns, so we just take the easiest way and just say, okay, accept the return. And I'm glad I didn't, because it turned out that this was a return request from the beginning of April. So these people were sitting on this item, and what it was is a dehumidifier unit that I sent out to them. And apparently this person just either A, didn't bother to try to use it for like a full month and a half, and then when they used it, it worked, but they noticed that it wasn't collecting water. So the dehumidifier takes the water out of the atmosphere, and of course out here in Vegas there's nobody using a dehumidifier because it's just so dry. But out on the East Coast, Florida, the South, that type of thing, a lot of folks use that to make it a little bit more bearable when they're just at home. So the machine apparently wasn't collecting water as it's supposed to, but I would take a return normally on that, but come on. See, buyers and sellers, we both have different responsibilities in the interaction, in the transaction. The seller has to be as forthright with the information. They should at least try to test when they can. And of course, I can't. Out in Vegas, what kind of dehumidifier is going to work for me? I mean, I need a humidifier out here more than anything else. So I can only test the machine like that so much. And of course, I'm not going to run that thing for hours on end, even if I could use it properly. So besides a basic functionality test, that's really all we can do. And so we sell our items like that. I'd say we probably have sold about a dozen dehumidifiers over the last few months. and haven't had an issue with the return. Okay, I think one person wanted to return it because they just didn't like it. Whatever. Okay. Aside from that, these machines have been very good and reliable. But I did my part. I described the item the best that I could. I tested it to the best of my ability, and we offered a generous 30-day return policy if anything goes wrong. Unfortunately, the buyer didn't do their end of the bargain, which is whenever you buy something online that has a functionality, or maybe even a clothing item, got to make sure it fits, right? Make sure it works. Give it a try. You have 30 days, a generous 30-day window to figure out if this is going to work for you. Or at least, like some buyers do, make up a reason and send it back if you don't want it. But the moment it crosses that generous 30-day return policy, or in some of your cases, a generous, really generous 60-day return policy, that's it. I don't care what happened with the item. You didn't do your part as a buyer, and to at least make sure that what you ordered was what you got, and what you expected is what you received. And simply, it's not asking a whole lot, but once you get it, you have 30 days to at least try it out, try it on, whatever it is you bought. And after that period, I don't care why or what has happened, I'm done with that transaction. So that's what happened here. I basically went to my computer after receiving the request on the phone, and I dug into the request a little bit more to find out, okay, it's a dehumidifier. Awesome. It's a fairly bulky item. I think it's like 20 something pounds. And it was coming from Texas, so it was probably going to cost me every bit of about $25-30. Doesn't matter. If it's a valid return, I'll accept it. It's the cost of doing business. But we're talking almost 60 days. Almost a full 2 months has gone by, and this person's now saying that the item doesn't work, and they even said it has never worked. Well, okay, that's even worse. So you had an inkling that this thing wasn't what it was supposed to do, wasn't collecting the water as you claimed. I guess the machine was saying that the tank was full when there was no water being collected. And you sat on this issue. You never even reached out to me once telling me there was a problem. And then now I just wake up to a return request on my phone. That's not how eBay works. And of course, this person had like 50 feedback. So they've had some transactions in the past. But the lack of communication gave me no chance to resolve the problem as a seller. So I declined the request. And I put in there that we offer a generous 30-day return policy. At this point, it is more of a warranty issue than a return issue. Certainly you can try to take it up with the manufacturer. Some manufacturers will handle it. They'll honor their product regardless of receipt or not. I've seen it with like Dyson and other companies like that. But for me, that's all I could offer because I wasn't going to take the return. So guess what happened after that, guys? The return was closed. Now, what's funny is you see here when I'm given the option, it gives you like 5 options to go in and either accept the return, or you can give a partial refund, you can give a full refund, and then buried down there it will say decline return, right? Because eBay, they'd rather you take the return for some reason. As you can see on this screenshot, it says consider accepting a return to give the buyer a great experience, but you can decline if you have to. I mean, it's sort of like that guilt trip. Everyone knows what that guilt trip is. Well, you can help me. It would be great if you can, but I guess if you can't, if you don't have to, then I'll figure out something else, right? That's very manipulative, and I don't appreciate getting that kind of a message from eBay. It tells me everything I need to know, that they don't really have my back. They'd rather me take the return and bite the bullet, even though I've followed every process that they've asked me to follow with this return process. And then of course they make you fill out the reason why you're declining the request. Like you have to explain yourself. So I simply just tell the buyer that eBay has a generous return policy, and you didn't take the time to contact me not once over the last couple months. Now it closes the case automatically. So as a seller, you don't have to worry about that, except the buyer has within 60 days. So they had like another 5 days to go in and open a negative feedback on me. So they left me a novel on there, and the novel kind of went into, wife had this for over a month, and she just tried to use it after the month, and it didn't work for her, even though they said it never did. But nonetheless, they showed me a picture that it was powered on. So it tells me that most of the features work, but maybe one part, the most important part, I guess, didn't work. But they never contacted me, and the feedback stated that this seller wouldn't allow us to return the item even though it was beyond 30 days. And so I contacted eBay, because you know what, this is not right. You can't leave a negative feedback against the seller when they're doing everything they're supposed to do that eBay has asked them to do. And when you come to me with a return request beyond 30 days, it's just that, a request. I don't have to do it. And I was being polite by even giving you an explanation. I didn't really even have to provide that. So I got the rep on the phone. It was a US rep. We went through it. I explained my position on this, and she went in and said, yeah, I see what you're saying. And then she went in and canceled or deleted the negative feedback, which is great, but then came back with the caveat, I probably shouldn't have done this. I already deleted the negative feedback, but I noticed that you don't offer free returns. And the seller protection here is only if you have free returns, at least for the reason why I removed it. And I said, well, I have a problem with that. I said, look, it doesn't matter who's paying for the return label. This buyer is asking for a return beyond that window of time. So it's not like we're having an issue on who's paying for the label. There is no label because there is no return. eBay has told us as sellers we are required to offer a generous 30-day return window, and the buyer didn't follow through. They didn't follow that part of the deal. And how is it in any way, shape, or form the fault of the seller? Now, she said she understood what I was saying, and she said that it might be difficult in the future to have this type of thing removed because there really isn't anything that speaks to this type of situation, and it's open for interpretation. So that's what happened here, guys. Want to know what you think on that. I know there's a percentage of folks out there who would go as far as refunding the buyer or offering a return label. And to be honest with you guys, I think that's a huge mistake, because again, what's the point of defining any particular return window when you're going to allow a buyer to return it anyway? I don't think it's unreasonable for a buyer to be expected to test it out, if it's clothing, try it out, or just look at what they bought, examine what they bought from you, and decide if that's what they want or not, or if that's what they ordered. It works well on Mercari for 3 days. It works well on Poshmark, 3 days. So we're giving them 10x, 10 times the amount of time that those other sites give. And those other sites generally don't have problems with these buyers, but yet 30 days ain't enough. And then eBay wants to facilitate a buyer's return request beyond that. There shouldn't even be a button as far as I'm concerned. Once you exceed that time, I believe like Amazon, for instance, if you buy something on Amazon and you want to return it beyond like the 45-day window, there's not even a button to return your item. It's done. Okay, you're done. You failed as a buyer, and they're not going to coddle you. But eBay continues to coddle these bad buyers that take no ownership into their part of the equation. I mean, that buyer should have been, you know what, my bad, I just didn't have time or whatever to test this. Next time, it's a learned lesson. Next time I'll do better. But the buyer wants to leave me a negative feedback like I did something wrong. Thankfully, they removed it, but I doubt that you're going to have that easy of a time if you run into this situation where you need eBay to step in and help you with the negative feedback. It just really, based on what she was telling me, the rep was telling me, it sounds like it's like depends on who you get. So if you get that rep in the Philippines, they might just say, sorry, I can't help you. And you're going to be frustrated. But, negative feedback doesn't matter that much, but I don't like any blemish on my account, so I take the steps to try to get that stuff taken care of. And of course, it helps me, gives me something to talk about with you guys. And it's I chalked it up as a learning experience, and hopefully you guys can too. But when they make things easy for the buyer to be coddled, and when they don't even back us up on our return policies, and they almost guilt us. In this case, they guilt us into trying to go hit the back button and to, instead of declining the return, accepting the return, right? But you can decline if you have to. That's not going to work, eBay, at least for me. Hopefully most of you guys won't fall for it either. Stick with your return policy as it is mandated by eBay, that we have at least 30 days, and some of you have a 60-day, which is way generous, but stick to it. What's the point of having it if you're not going to stick to it? So if you like the video, if you like the content we put out, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. I think we have a great community here. And of course, hit that notification bell so when we go live or come up with another video, then you're notified. eBay. Sometimes you just got to shake your head. You know, you'd like to think that somehow, some way, that eBay is a partner with us sellers in this journey that we have just to resell items. They are supposedly in the business to want to help sellers succeed, but it just seems like sometimes that they're in the business of just aggravating sellers and getting in our way, even with their own policies and the way they set up their site. But yet, this is just yet another example of how sometimes when we're dealing with eBay, how flipping ain't easy. I want you guys to have an excellent rest of your day, and we will talk to you very soon.